Hey guys, listening to the English Made Simple show. This is episode number 225, number 225, 225. Yay! Now we can all count till 225 in Spanish. Yay! Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. My name is Milena, and I'm the host of the English Made Simple show. You can find me at englishmadesimple.net, englishmadesimple.net. What is up? What's up, everybody? What's up is just a nice way of saying, how are things? What's new? How are you guys? I hope you enjoyed that last episode with my student Leslie. If you are new to the show, I strongly recommend you go back one episode, go to number 224, and listen to that episode, the last episode where my student shares her story about her struggles with English when she emigrated to the US, as well as tips. She gives us some tips on what she did to start improving her English, especially the speaking part. One of the takeaways I got from her story was that you should start speaking in English regardless of how you sound. If there is something you don't understand and you're talking to some English speaker, ask the person that you're speaking with. Ask them, sorry, how do you say this in English? And then bit by bit you will start memorizing different phrases, and before you know it, you would have built up enough confidence to start speaking with anybody. Alright, so that was in episode 224, one episode before this one. Awesome, guys, and this brings me to today's show. What's one of the best and quickest ways you can start speaking with English speakers so you can practice your speaking? What is one of the best and quickest ways you can start speaking in English? I know. Of course I know. I prepared this episode. You can find social groups in your local area. I briefly touched on this in episode number 223 called How to Feel Less Anxious When Conversing in English, where I talked about having a plan before going out to events where you meet people to speak with in English. And I've also covered social groups. I think I briefly mentioned social groups in my earlier episodes where I talked about meetups. That was episode number 026, so a long time ago. The episode called Talk with Native Speakers with meetup.com, I think, which was released back in July 2016. Oh my goodness, almost 3 years ago. I cannot remember what I shared in that episode, but what I know for sure is that the meetup.com is one of the first social groups that come to mind when I think of practicing speaking in any language, all right? Not just English. I also know there are a lot of new listeners now joining us. So there are new listeners who haven't listened to the previous episodes, like the episodes from the 2016. And, you know, some of the new listeners don't actually go back and scroll through the archive to listen to the old episodes. So they would have missed out on this important tip where I talk about meetup.com. So today's episode is going to be about going to places such as meetup.com. By the way, amigos y amigas, I am not affiliated with meetup.com. I just recommend them because I used them in the past. Let me share you a quick story of how I ended up using Meetup, or how I found out about Meetup. So I went to my first Meetup with my friend from Colombia. He introduced me to the Meetup. He was new in Australia and he asked me to go with him to the Meetup. And because he didn't have anybody to go with, he was alone. He didn't want to go alone. I was like, okay, what the heck is that? Okay, so one day I said, all right, let's go. Fine, let's just go. It was a Spanish Meetup in Australia. Okay, so this was a long time ago now. I think that was 8 years ago. I think the group was called Spanish / English Language Exchange. Spanish English Language Exchange. I think that was the name. And that was organized in Australia, in Melbourne. So yeah, 8 years ago, I can't remember exactly how long ago that was, but that was my first experience using Meetup. I think the group might still exist. I'm not sure, I didn't check before I recorded this episode, but I used to also organize events with this group. I used to be the organizer as well after some time. Anyway, so I think the group exists anyway. So if you're in Melbourne, you can check it out. Anyhow, I went to this meetup with no Spanish skills. Nada. I didn't know anything. All I could do is recite songs by Shakira. Okay, that's about it. So I am really glad that I went to this meetup. I was also new in Melbourne at the time. So as I recently moved from New Zealand to settle in Australia, so maybe that was long time ago. Let me just think. Maybe not 8 years ago now. I think it's 10 years ago. So I also needed to meet some new friends. I was new to Melbourne. And meetups are great for this type of thing, right? After that experience, I decided to start my own meetup group. I started it with my friend from Finland. She also wanted to create a meetup group because she was also new in Melbourne. So both of us decided, let's do it together. So I started organizing different meetup groups. It was a fun thing to do with a friend. It wasn't that scary when you can do it with a friend. And we had a lot of fun. We met a lot of people. So guys, why should you care about this story? Okay? You're probably wondering, why are you telling us, Milena? Well, I'll tell you why, okay? I'll tell you why. I think I know you pretty well by now. Everybody who's listening, I think I know you pretty well, all right? Every week you tune in to listen to the EMS show. Maybe you're driving or walking or washing dishes or whatever you're doing. So you listen to my gibberish, you understand what I'm saying, but for some reason you still struggle to speak in English. Maybe you don't practice enough. So I bet 80 or 90% of you have really good listening skills because you're listening to this show, so your listening skills must be good. And maybe you know grammar better than me, but when it comes to speaking, in English, this is where you lack practice. And this is why you should care about things like Meetup. So if you have time to go to these things, this is what I recommend. In my opinion, if you want to have a chance to engage in a conversation in English with someone, meetups are by far the quickest way to do this. This is where you can practice your speaking skills. Apart from the meetup.com website, there are now other websites, I think, on the market that can also be useful to check out if you want to practice your speaking. There is another website called polyglotclub.com that is intended for language learners to practice their speaking. It can be any language, not just English. So you can practice any language. It's like, again, language exchange. I went to a Polyglot Club event, I think in Chile once. Yes, they specialize in language exchanges. And what's different about it compared to Meetup, it's just Polyglot is all about languages, whereas Meetup can be about anything. It could be about different activities. You can go to a Meetup about jogging. You can have walking groups, different types of hobbies if you're into. You can have groups about, gardening. I'm just thinking out loud. Hiking groups and more. But I reckon there are more options on the meetup.com. There are more things for you to choose from and more things to do, as well as practice English. That's what I mean. Anyway, it's up to you. So what should you do now? Now that you have all this information, now that I have enlightened you with this new piece of information, maybe some of you haven't even heard of meetup.com. So when I talked about Meetup in episode 026, a couple of people messaged me, I remember, and they said that they would go to a meetup, but they feel really scared or embarrassed to go and speak to some strangers in English. I know that feeling, been there, yep. But you get over it. Well, as you can tell from my story, I was embarrassed as well when I went to the Spanish meetup in Australia. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. That was 10 years ago. But it was a really fun experience for me. I recommend to go to your first meetup with a friend. So if you decide to go to a meetup after listening to this episode, for example, grab a friend with you and find a local meetup and go together to that meetup. So if you don't end up meeting anybody at the meetup or having a conversation with anyone at the meetup, at least you can spend some time with your friend, have a drink, and that's it. The language meetups usually take place in a bar or at a cafe. It's a public place and you can sit somewhere and observe the group if you don't feel like joining the meetup group. But here is something you should know, okay? Hope you're following me so far. I had never met anybody at the meetup who was mean, who was not nice, okay? To be mean means to not be nice, not a nice person. The word mean has a lot of meanings, but if you use it to describe a person, it means that they are not nice. They are mean. And it is spelled the same way as means, okay? M-E-A-N. Okay, people are not mean at meetups. Just bear that in mind. Maybe there are some exceptions. Maybe they're drunk or something. But normally the people I met, they were never mean. They never had anything bad to say. So does this tickle your fancy now? Does it tickle your fancy? Okay, that's an expression which just means, does this sound interesting to you? Are you intrigued? A couple of other things you should know about Meetup. They are usually free to attend. It's the organizer who pays to have a group listed on the Meetup website. Who knows? Things might have changed from 8 or 10 years ago when I last went to the Meetup. I think there are now more groups on there now. Maybe some are paid or some are free ones. Nonetheless, the one I recommend for you guys are groups to do with language exchange. And those are usually free. For example, in Australia, I went to the Spanish-English language exchange group. And when we met, I'll just describe quickly how it all went down. When we met at this bar, we spoke 15 minutes in English and 15 minutes in Spanish. So there was a kind of like swap. So we were swapping English and Spanish. And this was actually a similar setup in Chile when I went to the meetup. I went to the same type of group, English-Spanish exchange group, and we did the same thing, 15 minutes of English and then the bell rings and then 15 minutes of Spanish. It wasn't too bad. All right, that sounds really interesting. So the last thing you should know is that the meetup is worldwide. It's meetup.com. It's worldwide. Virtually, you can find a group in any city around the world. So if you're from Turkey, Istanbul, there might be a group there. All you have to do is go to meetup.com. If you're from Argentina or Brazil, Mexico, France, Italy, there will be a local group in your city, I am sure. All you have to do is just check out meetup.com and see what's happening. It's a new world out there, you'll see. So how does this all sound? Do you think you're gonna do it? I wonder how many people would do this. Would you be keen to go and check out a meetup group? Or does this all sound too scary for you? I wonder what's going through your mind right now. You're probably thinking, what do I say when I get there? When I see all these people that I don't know, what do I say to them? Yep, I know. I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you're asking yourself these questions. Well, most of these people will be lost as well. The ones you're going to meet, they're also asking themselves the same questions. They are also lost. So you won't be alone. So that's a good thing. So guys, just so you are aware, today's episode is a segue into the next few episodes that will be about conversation starters. So this is going to help you when you go to a meetup. When I say conversation starters, we are not going to practice conversation starters just for the meetup. You can actually use them anywhere you go where you have to engage with someone in English. I only wanted to use Meetup as an example because I think it's one of the easiest ways for you to start practicing your speaking and improve your speaking skills that way. And it's easiest and quickest thing you can do. All right? Cool bananas. So in the next few episodes, we're going to practice conversation starters. And I will explain what these are as well in next week. And Weon Inteligente is going to be making an appearance. He's been quiet a little bit, but he'll be back next week. Until then, muchachos y muchachas, thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about the conversation starters and what they are, then don't forget to go to englishmadesimple.net/convo to get more details. I prepared an audiobook about simplifying conversations. I spent like 4 hours creating this book and audiobook. I had to record it as well. So it's a free thing for you to download. Go to englishmadesimple.net/convo. Again, thanks for listening. You've been an awesome audience, amigos y amigas. You've been jamming with Milena from English Made Simple. Until next time, hasta la próxima.